Yeah, welcome to my channel, everyone. Today I have Althea here today, and this is going to be a really cool, exciting interview. We're just going to talk about several different things regarding to starseeds and things like that. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, I've been feeling very sluggish the last month and the first part of this month. It must be the energies or something. Like I've been feeling really inflamed and stuff. It's kind of weird. You've been
Yeah.
feeling any these weird energies lately?
I've been sleeping more. So I've been sleeping a little bit more. I also did some Kambo healing a few days ago. So that also kind of like affected me a little bit. But no, overall for me, I think, yeah, I've been quite energetic. I have been feeling this beautiful new grid that's been anchoring. I'm also in summer. So I'm in South Africa and it's summer here. So I do think that it's obviously a different energy from being, present where it's winter, where it's like hibernating and colder and things like that. So from my side, I've been feeling almost like a beautiful release and let go. And in the last few days as well, quite active astral activity.
Okay, that's really cool. And I know that you do a lot of different things, and you do like a lot of sessions with people, and do go to expos and things like that. Do you feel like you have to rest more when you're doing all that stuff?
That's a very good question. Not really. I have a very big team that I work with. So, I mean, sometimes I can do like even 10 to 12 sessions in a day, but because of the amount of energy work that I've been doing for the amount of time, and because I operate from a multidimensional level, I've got a team of about 300 beings that I work with, plus I work with the client's team as well. So I don't really end up getting like that drained. I do have to obviously take time off because I am still human. But I think the longer I've been doing this, for the more time that I've been doing it, now I can sustain, yeah, like different rhythms from what I could maybe sustain 2 to 3 years ago. So I think it's for every individual. This is kind of like how I operate because I hold quite a big container. I've got a big team that I work with that I'm very grateful that assist me, throughout the healing process on an individual and collective level.
So you've been doing this for a while now, like 10 years or so, something like that. Is that about right?
Yes and no. So I started with my Reiki about 10 years ago. I moved everything online with the pandemic, but I was already doing Reiki and energy healing before that. And I was doing like psychic and intuitive work. I started like when I was 12. I'm like doing like tarots and things like that. I was one of those kids who would see like shadows in the room and then not be able to sleep, sort of thing. So it's been a lifetime of beautiful learning, let's put it that way.
And so do you like doing sessions in person more, or do you like doing them online better?
It's different, I guess. I mean, it's interesting to see from an energetic perspective clients online and in person, but I wouldn't say that I like more one or the other. I think that online there is a broader access for a collective potential. You can help and assist, thousands of people all at the same time. And I mean, the codes do work beyond the concept of space and time. So in the end, what I do always say is that it doesn't really make that much difference whether you see me in person or online because of the way that the codes tend to work. I think it's just a preference towards a client. And it's also beautiful. Like sometimes I work with people online for like 2 years and then I meet them in person. And that's really, really.
Yeah, and I think it's very cool doing things with clients, and I like doing things online just because it's easier for me just energetic wise, because I don't have to like absorb as much of their energy. But I feel like with the type of stuff that you do, by the end of the session, everything usually feels pretty good anyways. Like even if the client's kind of feeling heavier at the beginning of the session, it probably feels better by the end of the session. So it probably doesn't matter as much with the type of like light language and stuff that you do, because you do like several different types of things, right? Not just light language. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah. So I do channeling, and then what I do is I do Akashic clearing. I help people kind of like dismantle templates and programs. I just help people become the best possible version of themselves. So I work organically with each individual client. So I'll have someone who comes to me and says, I've just come out of an abusive relationship. Please, can you assist me to, I don't know, build up my self-confidence, heal my sacral, release cords from my solar plexus. So I kind of do what is needed. And I think in the years of practicing and doing this, it just, yeah, you kind of like start to see patterns as well on a collective level. So there'll be weeks where everyone is struggling with their throat and everyone is like either coughing or has throat blockages or things like that. So that's kind of like what you do that week and whatnot. And then there'll be maybe like a few days where everyone is struggling with grounding, with being rooted. Everyone is feeling kind of like all over the place. So I try to be as flexible and versatile as possible while still maintaining a balanced structure within my boundaries.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I noticed that you dyed your hair red. And the reason I say that, because I always notice you're like on the explore page and I go on Instagram, I always see your post, even like when I wasn't following. I was like, oh, I noticed that. I see the red hair. I was like, that definitely makes sense to do that because it definitely gets people's attention, doesn't it?
I think for me, it's more for grounding. My hair is red because it's connected to the root. And because I work in these high spaces 24/7, I need as much grounding as possible. And it's been like this in a lot of different lifetimes. So I work a lot with my hair. It's almost like I use it as an antenna. I don't cut my hair. It's painful for me to cut my hair. Like literally, if I have to like trim it, like it's painful. Yeah. It's just, I feel like, and sometimes it's okay to like trim and let go and release and whatnot. But generally, I do work a lot with my hair. Everything within my system and appearance to a certain level is divinely guided. And there is a kind of like a reason behind it. I don't believe that there are, to an extent, any coincidences. So I just try to really listen as much as possible and then operate from that space of unconditional love in whatever aspect, whether it's my appearance, my work, my friendships,
Yeah, that's cool. I think that makes sense how it kind of like suits your energy, your hair color. And I noticed some people that my friend Kristen, I think her team told her to dye her hair blonde because she's had a lot of Pleiadian lifetimes and it just suited her energy and also catches people's attention and things like that. So that's fun too. And I noticed that you've had like when I tune into your energy so much, I knew you've had like multiple starseed origins. Like you've had like 3 or 4. Can you talk a little bit about some of those? I think it sense like Lyran or Lyran, have you that one, and then also Arcturian and maybe a little bit of Syrian. Do you resonate with those?
Yeah, so I've had all of those, but I did see the Pleiades, but I've had lifetimes on Vega and Lyra, and then I've had lifetimes in Sirius, and I work a lot with Arcturian technology. So I have a lot of Arcturian technology that comes in and through me in my light language, and then obviously this is more earth-based, but I've had many ancient Atlantis and Lemuria, and that's also a lot of the technology that I bring through within my healing. I have a 9th dimensional Pleiadian version of myself that I work with, and I've got a 12th dimensional Mantis being version of myself that I work with as well. But yeah, I mean, I think we all have access to everything, so it's just a matter of tuning in. Obviously, some galactic imprints are more prominent than others within certain star seeds, but yeah, I think it's, a beautiful infinite world of creation out there. So whatever being you want to connect with, I think, if that's, you feel a resonance, then great. I mean, I work with Blue Avian beings every now and then as well. So there's definitely a lot of mix out there for us to be able to access.
So which ones do you think you work with the most, or do you resonate with the most?
I work very closely with my Pleiadian and Mantis versions of myself. Yeah,
okay,
that's the truth.
So do you think okay, so that's really cool. I've not really met many people with Mantis incarnations. It's funny, the last video that I posted on my YouTube channel was about Mantis beings. I had 2 different people on my channel that have been Mantis beings, and that was always really cool to like tune into that type of energy because I'd never really done that before. And it was like really cool because when you think of Mantis beings, I don't know, there's a lot of negativity. A lot of people think that there's negative ones or they work with this or that, but there's also very positive ones. And when I tuned in their energy, it was like very a lot of stillness and things like that, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, I mean, on my personal level, I've never connected to a mantis being that is of a low vibrational frequency. It's very neutral. I find that's when you said like peace, calmness. Yes. They operate from unconditional love, but it's very neutral. So much so that the mantis being version that I work with isn't like either masculine or feminine. Like I can't really give it a gender. Do you know what I mean? Like if I really, I would say maybe more masculine because of kind of like the non-emotional aspect sort of thing, but it's what you say, kind of like that peaceness, stillness, void, which is the best place to then be able to, whether it's retrieve information or send healing or send codes or, whatever it is.
And I've heard you talk a lot of times about, consciousness and about time and things like that. And as we both know, a large portion of our consciousness is outside of our vessel. It's not, within our vessel. We only incarnate with a certain portion of our consciousness or being into our vessel. So is there anything you could say about that, about like manifesting or about time with about our consciousness in general?
Yeah, there's a lot I can say. I just need to choose what is more. Okay, so first of all, for me, I like to see it almost like as an infinite kind of like lake of source consciousness, and we are a drop from the lake. So we are our own individual beings, but at the same time, we are part of the one and all and the everything. To be able to anchor into your highest alignment and manifest the life that you want to co-create and that you deserve to be in, you need to make conscious decisions that operate from a space which is beyond time. Yeah. So from a space that is neutral, so which would be your 0 point neutrality, your stillness point, a lot of people call it in many different ways. So how do you get there? This is a very useful tool that I just tend to tell people because it's the easiest way. So you just meditate and you get into a space where you are everything and nothing. And then from there, you kind of become what it is that you want to attract, but you do it from a space that doesn't have any attachment. Because once you go into attachment putting polarity, because it's a space of need, which puts you outside of 0 point neutrality. So it's obviously easier said than done. But you want to operate from that space 24/7. You want to be in a space where you are neutral. You're obviously feeling your emotions, your love, your happiness, and if there is sadness, you want to clear it, you want to release it, but you're always going back to that neutral space within yourself. And once you are firm and anchored into that, you're able to see all the possible timelines and make the decision that is for your highest alignment. So you start operating from a baseline vibrational frequency, which is quite high, so again, it
is very high vibrational.
Yeah, easier said than done, but I think this would be a good way for people to kind of see it and try to start navigate and operate from. And to get there, you need to learn to control your emotions. So surrender, allow for what is needed to come up, observe, and then release. Don't get stuck in whatever it is, like the sadness, the anger, the regret, and just allow it to be and then move on.
Yes. And of course, the more times that we reach stillness or 0 point, the less heaviness that we carry, because a lot of that heaviness comes up to the surface. And then also the more times we do it, it's going to be easier for us to stay in that frequency. So for example, and faster for you to be able to get to that frequency. So if you say you put into 0 point many times, like in meditation or things, so it's much easier for you to replicate that in just everyday life. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I try to operate from that on in my day to day. I try to operate from that. So this is also what I always say. Everyone is oh, but you need to meditate. I'm no, guys, I don't do hours of meditation. Meditation is a tool like everything else. It's good to, I used to meditate for long. I don't really need to anymore now. 10 minutes in the morning, maybe 10 minutes in the evening, in between the day if I feel like I need to kind of just regroup myself. But once you start operating from that space of neutrality and unconditional love, then the meditation is great, but you don't have to meditate 20 hours like the sadhus in India,
Yeah, I'm totally the same way. And I think, obviously when you're first awakening, it's going to be more important for you to meditate for probably longer periods of time. But I'm all about, like, if you want to meditate, just meditate for like 10 minutes at a time or 20 minutes at a time. It seems better to me. But yeah, I used to meditate like an hour or 2 hours a day, and now I don't really meditate very often at all. It seems like more just kind of like everyday life. I'm kind of in the flow more often. It's probably because of the work that we're doing too. It keeps you more in the flow anyways. It's sort of like a meditation. And yeah, I was going to ask you a question about, I know the Blue Avians, when I channel them, they talk a lot about detachment and detaching from this reality, and just all about like having a healthy detachment. I'm not talking about just complete escapism all the time. Not saying that's bad, but just having like a healthy level of attachment. Is there anything that you have to say about detachment and, like you said, about detaching from your expectations of this reality or what you think's going to happen, and being able to manifest from that space, like you were saying, of just kind of like detachment? Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I think if people struggle with unhealthy attachments, rather like sorry, can you see me?
No, I can't see you. I think your camera turned around or something.
Yeah, that's what happens. Is my back?
You are. Yeah, there you go.
You can see it. I think what happens is with a lot of people struggle with attachments, like unhealthy attachments, because of the consumeristic society we get brought up in. We get told that we're not good enough unless we have this or we have that. And then people like tend to feel a void within themselves with external things. Obviously, there can be healthy attachments too. So like, I don't know, the bond between a mother and a child, that's a healthy attachment, unless the mother is like, not surviving or living without the child, but that kind of love would be a healthy attachment. My advice would be to work on releasing all and every expectation in every aspect, and then kind of like bring it back to having some from there, if it makes sense. So it's kind of like the boundaries, put the boundaries if you struggle with boundaries, and then take them down a bit. I think just because you need to dismantle the program first in order to be able to have the program, to live within the structure in a healthy way. So you deprogram to reprogram, if it makes sense. So I think a little bit of healthy attachment is inevitable, like it's life, the problem is when you cannot function on a certain level if you don't have that attachment. So I'll give you an example. This is an example that I always give, because attachment comes down to ego. And ego can really be anything that causes you a blockage from living your life. So let's say someone doesn't want to go to the beach because they don't feel comfortable in wearing a bikini. That's your ego blocking you, and that's you needing to release an attachment or to release that program. So it really goes beyond what people conceptualize as kind of like an emotional attachment. It's quite like a broader spectrum, I think, that needs to be tackled from that aspect. I think it would be anything that's blocking you from living in your highest alignment. Like, that's the way I would probably see it.
Yeah, I think it's really cool learning detachment, and I've had to teach that to several other people, to not be so focused on this physical world. And also, like you were saying, you rely a lot on your team too. So you're not so serious and so attached to this reality, and you're a vessel here. You're also relying on the forces that be, whether that be your angels or your team and things like that. I think that's very important, not just to see ourselves as only this and this is all that is, and also manifest from the larger portion of our being, which is outside of our body, as well as manifest within our vessel, because it's all working together in tandem with each other in divine timing. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, of course, exactly.
So you were talking about the ego, and about not be like, with the example you gave about like not wearing your bikini or something, and your ego and stuff like that. Would you say that I've noticed that you're quite expressive in your sexuality, and I think that's really cool, because you don't see that very often with a lot of people online. And just with a lot of starseeds in general. How do you go about doing that, and were you always like that?
Yeah, I think it's limiting to put someone in a box in any aspect. I don't really like labels, even when people are like, oh, you're a light worker, or you're Pleiadian, or you're... no, I'm an infinite being of light. So in whatever way I choose to express and be myself, like I think that's okay. And I respect everyone else who does that. Doesn't necessarily mean I will do what everyone else is doing. You know what I mean? So I think, yeah, I think online it wins if you are yourself. Like you can't, it's especially in our line of work, you just need to really be yourself. And the people who will resonate, your tribe, they'll connect. And the ones who don't, that's also okay. You know, I find that especially with the light language, when I first started channeling, I was worried that people were going to judge me and think that I'm crazy. Oh, she needs to go to a psych ward. Oh, she's taking drugs or whatever it is. But I promise you, especially in the beginning, the videos went to who needed to see them, and they were just ignored from the people who, I don't know, your trolls or whatever it is. More now, obviously having a larger following, it can happen every now and then, but it's so seldom that I get people who like, you know, psychic attacks, because that is what they are. It's psychic attacks, you know. And I think if you just respond with love or allow it and thank them for the experience, then that kind of like, you know, neutralizes itself. Everything is a lesson, and I think we just need to try and navigate it with the utmost integrity. For me, I just have my thoughts, actions, emotions, and words all in alignment. I say something, I do it. If I'm doing something, I believe in it. If I speak about something, I am kind of like, you know, walking the walk and talking the sort of thing. I can't lie in my personal life. You know, I don't really do anything that doesn't feel from my heart or in alignment with who I am. So really with me, what you see is what you get.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've noticed you're quite heart-centered, and have you always been quite heart-centered? Is that something that you've worked on or moved towards in your lifetime?
So this is what I've channeled when it comes to energy workers. There is a point in everyone who's in this line of work where your heart opens up to a certain degree where you are in merging union with source again. So it's a twin union with source that activates from the heart center. So I can't say exactly when that happened for me, but it might maybe like 3-4 years ago. So it's almost like a degree which the heart chakra opens up and you connect and you return back to source. And then you start operating from a space of unconditional love, which is from where I operate. And I'm sure a lot of other energy workers out there do too. So no, I haven't always been like this. I've always been very like compassionate and to an extent very naive because of the amount of lifetimes that I've had off this planet. Like sometimes I would really struggle to understand emotions like envy and jealousy because it's something that has never even really been in my peripheral because of the kind of being that I am. But obviously, like I have to live on Earth, so I kind of have to like exactly. I would say that within the last few years, I've grown a lot more patient, a lot more compassionate, just a lot more, heart centered.
So what are some of the things that you know, envy, jealousy, and what are some of the things that toughened you up in your lifetime? Did it have to do with relationships or a part of your spiritual awakening?
I had many. I've had many different ones. I feel like I've lived 1,000 lifetimes, you know, just in this one. I had a very intense, I ended up in hospital when I was like, I think it was back in 2017. So that was a big wake up call. I wasn't really like taking that much care of my body and my physical vessel. So my body was like no. And then a year or two after that, I was pregnant and my partner at the time tried to kill me when I was 4 months pregnant. So that was like a really, really karmic relationship that happened. So I had to obviously, you know, work with releasing that and healing that and navigating through that. Within a year, I had lost every type of control that I had. I was in debt, had no control over my finances, no control over my body. I didn't have a job because the pandemic had happened. I didn't have a house, so I had to go back and stay with my family. So I had a lot of very intense ego deaths in a very short space of time. And I think a year or two before that, I had a very intense ET encounter where I had beings physically come and try to like prod me and do work on me. And I had to kind of like I did the QHHT Dolores Cannon method. I went back in hypnotic regression in the quantum realm. And then I from above and I said to them, you guys need to leave. So I kind of like saved myself. And that put me in a space of, wow, so this is how powerful we can be. Okay,
Mhm.
wonderful. If there's bad beings, there must be good ones. Why don't I start connecting to the good ones? Sort of thing. So that's in a nutshell, but I've had a few, quite intense experiences that I had to navigate within this existence and lifetime.
So within your awakening, so would you consider your awakening to be, I know it's probably might be gradual in some sense over the years, but do you think it happened very fast for you, since you kind of were in like a kind of like a turmoil for your, or hit kind of rock bottom for yourself? Do you think that kind of opened you up really fast?
Yeah, mine was shock treatment. I would not have listened any other way. Like I'm an Aries, I would have
Yeah,
gone
me
straight
too.
through wherever, through the wall. I would not have listened. So now I listen. Now I listen very well. But it was, I would say that mine was it. It doesn't have to be like that for everyone. And the reason I was explaining, the reason why I had such extreme emotions and experiences is now I've lived them. I can help other people that are navigating through them. If my awakening had been flowers and petals and pretty things, then I wouldn't really be able to resonate as much with people going through more intense experiences. So they kind of gave me the extreme of everything so that I can juggle and balance and comprehend on the whole scale and level of kind of like the awakening process.
For sure. And I think that's also a thing with indigos or indigo starseeds. They have to kind of hit rock bottom with some of them, especially when it comes to like drugs or substances that they're using. Like in my case, I was abusing marijuana like to an extreme extent, and for me to awaken, I had to have an intense experience like that, and I think that's part of the reason why my team allowed negative ETs to harass me, because otherwise I never would have gotten off that substance or never would have stopped taking marijuana if if I wasn't harassed by these ETs like that, like and hitting rock bottom like that. And I think that's also a thing with indigos. They don't like labels, and they don't like they need to be toughened up in that way sometimes. They need to be checked, kind of.
Yeah, so for me, I'm a crystal rainbow child. That's what I was
Okay,
told. But my
really?
mother is, but my mother is from the indigo generation.
I thought you were an indigo because you must have some indigo traits or something as well, because like that's
Probably
great.
from my mom. Probably from my mom. What happened with you? Can I know what happened with your experience with your ETs?
What happened was I had an experience with marijuana where I came off of marijuana and I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks basically.
Oh, wow.
I didn't sleep constantly, and I was getting like a lot of auditory hallucinations and things like that, like all the time. And I was going through like manic episodes, so kind of like that. But it was also part of my spiritual awakening as well. So at the beginning, I was discovering, awakening to opening my heart chakra, and it felt really good. It felt like home, if I felt lost, the whole first part of my life, and when that happened, it kind of opening me up to a lot of things. And then I went to the other part of the manic episode where I felt like I experienced a lot of negative things, and that's when I was like a lot of negative ETs, negative reptilians, and was just constantly getting auditory hallucinations and just hallucinations, and not some of them weren't hallucinations as well. Some of the things I was actually seeing, and it was just really intense. And then you go on from there. Then you kind of think you're kind of crazy for a little while because you just can't stop hallucinating, and sleep. Because if you're always hearing auditory hallucinations, how are you supposed to sleep? So that was like kind of hard to me. So yeah, and that's what my parents put me into a psychiatric unit for like 2 weeks, and I hated it there.
I
But
can imagine.
I don't think that part was part of my awakening to go in there, from what I get from my team. But I do sense that these negative reptilians and things, they were part of my awakening in terms of like it felt like my team was allowing them to harass me so that I would never ever touch marijuana again, because it was very very bad for me. Marijuana is okay for some people I know, but for me it was very bad, and because
Yeah,
I a lot. And I noticed that within your, so when you had like some of those negative ETs around you and things like that, do you think you signed up for that, or do you think that was just that was just happening.
Yeah, I don't think there's any coincidences. It was meant to come through. They thought it was quite interesting because they thought they were randomly coming to like, you know, do stuff on this human being. And then when they saw me coming back in the quantum realm to say to them, you need to leave, you're not allowed to be here, they turned around and looked up at me as I was being sent back into the experience through the QHHT Dolores Cannon method. And they were like, they looked at each other and they were like, she's not supposed to know how to navigate this. How is she there and sleeping in the bed at the same time? They were like, no. We need to get out of here. This is not what we signed up for. So definitely it was all very well orchestrated by higher. And for me, I would not have believed any other way. Like it had to be in my face, like all my experiences, because it was just how it's supposed to be, you know. And for me to have that perception switch to then be anchored into the reality where I am now, it was necessary for me to have the experience so intensely.
Yeah, I think that really helps me too, awakening like really fast like that. And I think you were already awakened to a certain extent before that, even than most people on Earth. Anyways, like before you even had your spiritual awakening, like growing up.
So I started researching ETs when I was like 9 or 10 years old. When I was 12, I saw someone on TV, and they still have those old box TVs, like not the flat screens, like the box ones in the 90s. And I remember seeing someone saying that they were from Pleiades, and I was like, I know I'm also from there, sort of thing. So it had been like a consistent kind of like, and I would do research and I would know, like I read the David Icke books when I was like a teenager. So I knew about the reptilians. I knew this stuff was happening. I knew there were beings coming and going. So when it happened to me, I knew that it was true because I'd done all the research, and I was like, well, this is very, very, you know.
You've probably already done like a lot of the research, and you probably already downloaded a lot of the information from that, and it just all hits you at once. That's why with my awakening, it's like all the stuff that my mom talked about, like growing up about spirituality and things like that. Everything like hits you at once, and then everything makes sense. It's really weird. Like
what happened in that year, after I had that perception switch for about 2 to 3 months, all I was doing is I was just downloading information. So I was functioning. I had a part-time job. I was kind of functioning, but all I was doing is I was getting sent to do specific research on the computer, and then I was just downloading all the geometry, all the sacred things, everything kind of was interconnecting within my brain. And I mean, I was very grateful that I had a friend at the time. This is back in 2018. Now, I had a friend at the time who had gone through the same thing a year or two before. And she said, no, babe, like this is normal. Like it's okay. Just ground, hydrate, drink lots of water, you know, make sure that you're exercising and taking care. But if I wouldn't have had her, I would have thought I was losing it or going mad because I was living alone also at the time. So I you know, so this is why now for me, like I really try to help people who are navigating and going through these spaces, because it can be very lonely, you know. And yes, now there's community online. Like at the time, I think when my channel first opened, when I first started posting videos back in 2018 on light language, I mean, there were maybe like 10 channelers online. Now there's like thousands. So it's obviously grown exponentially.
I noticed that within my awakening, I feel like I was skipping in time or going forward in time. Like when I first awakened, I felt like I was like my consciousness was like going like a month ahead, 2 months ahead, then it would come back to like now, and then it was very surreal and interesting to know that your consciousness can even do that. It was like
I think it's when you start integrating the multidimensional aspects of you, then it all kind of merges. Like there's no time, there's no space. We try and conceptualize it with our human brain, but then we start operating from a space that goes beyond the human brain, you know, like you were saying, with all these beings and all these multidimensional aspects of self that are around us. And this is why the healing is important. This is why it's important to do, you know, shadow work, to do soul fragment retrieval, because as you reintegrate lost parts of your soul, then you start accessing and unlocking parts of your self, and then you start operating almost from like a superhuman perspective, where you're co-creating your reality, and your matrix structure game, whatever people want to call it. But without doing the work that you pre-contracted yourself to do, it's going to be very difficult to reach that baseline vibrational frequency.
For sure. I noticed that you said you've been many different starseed origins, and you've also been on Earth for a while and for quite some time, and some of the ancient times as well. Have you noticed that you having all of these different starseed origins, has it made you feel ungrounded at sometimes in this lifetime or earlier on in your lifetime?
Yeah, I would say that kind of like one of the main things in my life is focus on the grounding.
Yeah.
So just ground as much as possible. It's quite interesting. A few years ago, I was told by my team that because of the level of frequency that I was channeling, I had to actually put on physical muscle in the top part of my body, because they said you need to be stronger. Your physical needs to become stronger if you want to withstand the channel and the information that we're sending through to you on a collective level. So I find that for me, I need to do the opposite of what your average person would do. Your average person would want to connect and be up there and do that and be. I need to do the opposite. I need to come more down here because I'm up there all the time. And a lot of people would be like, oh, but it's so amazing. Like you get to be in those spaces and connect to those beings the whole time. Yes, but also at the same time, like I'm human, and that's, I think, is a problem, with a lot of the people out there who are kind of like navigating and teaching this work. It's almost like there's the heart consciousness.
Yeah,
a lot
they're
of people
always up here.
Yeah, exactly. But there needs to be kind of like unity and flow within all the system, and you cannot rise if you're not balanced. The you go, the more grounded you need to be. You can only reach a certain level if you're not healthy, if you're not physically taking care of yourself. The spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional all need to rise together.
I've noticed a lot, especially a lot of people that have like only Arcturian lifetimes or something. They'll all be up here like all the time. I'm like trying to tell them you gotta come down to the heart zone and and to the other chakras. And I've noticed that when channelers do that, when they channel more from up here all the time, eventually the energy starts to kind of go stagnant, or they stagnate a little bit more because they're not able to come down into the heart chakra as much. And not everyone is meant to. I'm not saying that, but I noticed that it's important to connect down with the heart, not just for channeling and for doing the spiritual work that we do, but also just everyday life. Coming down into our heart and lower chakras, even just being connected with your sexuality, being not confused sexually, or even just being more grounded in general within your body, so that you can just function in everyday life. I noticed that within my life, having a lot of these avian lifetimes, they're around all the time, and that's what it's felt like my whole life, is me being outside of my body a lot of the time. In the same way that it is with you, I have to focus on grounding like all the time. Like I have to go to do yoga, lifting weights, playing soccer, anything to try to get grounded. And even when I do all of that, it's still less grounded than a lot of people, especially I feel that people that have connected with the Pleiades, have connection with the Pleiades, they're able to ground better than other starseeds, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Pleiadian healing is mainly from the heart center. So I think once you're back in the heart, everything else sort of like levels itself out. I think people who struggle to channel from the heart and channel from higher will struggle to ground as well.
For sure. And I've always been quite curious about, where do Blue Avians, lie on that spectrum? Like, are they more up here? Are they more down here? And it was almost kind of like, I felt like when I would feel their energy, it feels like very like present in the moment, and just being in the moment, and just experiencing the moment. That's what I've noticed. Like I noticed, like with time, I'm not very good with time, like with months of the year or things like that, or anything with like planning things ahead. I've not been the best at. I've always just kind of taken things in the moment. If that makes any sense. Have you experienced something like that before?
So I've had quite a few different encounters with Blue Avians. Generally, it'll be maybe if I have a client who's very connected to them, then they'll come through. But I've had my own experience. It's been quite interesting. I've had a couple that I collaborated with for about a year. So I would allow them to come in when I was in meditation. And I found that they worked a lot on the crown and higher chakras, almost like retrieving information as to how my system operated and functioned on like a human level and also within my light body. So the encounters that I had with Blue Avians were more almost like they were doing research on me. And by contract, I allowed them to, and it was kind of like fine. Yeah. So that went on for about, I would say a year to a year and a half. And then they left. And then I had other Blue Avians come in that wanted help, but these ones I was like, no. It's not that they were doing anything bad, but they were waking me up at night.
Yes.
They were like, need you to now wake up, and I was like, no, guys, this is not okay. Like, go do your research somewhere else. Like, I need my sleep because I need to work tomorrow. So, but it was different ones. So that's kind of like the encounters that I've had. But I do find that because of also like the energy that they carry as well, they do tend to work a lot with the throat, and obviously with the birds, and I work a lot with birds as well. So I think like every species, there is individual subjects that anchor in different things. Like there's good and bad reptilians, good and bad greys, and whatnot. And I think, like everyone can have a different experience. It would be difficult for me to compartmentalize because I haven't had that much experience with them, if it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm the same way about a lot of ETs. I'm like, I know enough about them, but I'm not gonna go in super depth about things. I'm more interested about the traits that people carry on to Earth, because that's more, useful, more helpful, and whatever other knowledge about ETs, we're gonna probably know all of that when we pass away in the other plane anyways. So it's not super important. I noticed that when the Blue Avians, it's funny that you said about them connecting up here a lot. Whenever they come in, I always feel them come in my third eye a lot for some reason. And last night they came in, and of course they kept me awake, like you were saying. They always been a thing in my life. I've never been good at sleeping. I've always slept like maybe a few hours a night, and that's definitely, I think, one of the traits of some people that have these starseed origins. And they were like working on me big time last night for some reason. Maybe it was because of this interview that we were going to have. Because like for the last month and like 9 days, they weren't doing as much. And then the night before, they come in like super strong and like were working on me and like, heart chakra and everything. I was like, oh God, I'm not gonna be able to sleep. And it's cool. I looked up about like just even the birds here on Earth, they sleep in like intervals, and like they don't sleep for very long at a time. Like they're waking up. So that might have something to do with it,
Yeah, it would make sense, of course.
I've noticed that when I've incarnated as many different types of avians, not just the blue avians, but the red avians. But blue avians, like when they're more ascended, I feel like the more ascended ones in like the 9th dimension, 12th dimension, higher dimensions, most of them appear as in this bluer color, just like a lot of the ETs, like the Arcturians and different things like that. But with my Starseed origins, I felt like I incarnated more of these like 4th and 5th dimensional ones that were more primal. So they were just like doing things on their more physical beings, if that makes any sense. Kind of like we are, but different. And like when I first saw them, they were like 5 feet tall, but there's like huge birds, but they like extending a little bit more upright. And yeah, it was really interesting, connecting with that and awakening to that, because I was like, this is kind of weird that like seeing this in my it's out of body experience where they took me to. I was like, this is like really weird that I've been one of these type of starseed origins. And yeah, and I've learned a lot about them over time. And like I said, there's many different types. There's like blue ones, red ones, and then like all other types in between. And the type of way that they would communicate, I felt like, was like through telepathy or through like hieroglyphic style stuff, like images, if that makes any sense. And they're like very intelligent, but that's really, really cool.
I've seen like almost like white, transparent, translucent avians as well, almost like anchored into the angelic realms.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, I was just thinking about that last time. I heard someone saying that they were very ascended to the point where they're like similar in the angelic realm or the angelic frequency. That's like pretty cool. Pretty awesome. Okay, so where should we go next? I'm trying to grind a little bit right now, actually. I feel like during this interview, I feel like there's a lot of energy around us, you know?
Sure. Always. Whenever we release work on platforms, they always like, and what I find it's quite interesting whenever I open channel, it's almost like there's a huge queue of them wanting to come in, and I need to, at the same time, I need to kind of like streamline the energy and see what is more efficient for the collective.
And one time I had the Pleiadians come in and they really helped to ground my energy. They have like a unique way of really like grounding your frequency and making you feel more human, if that makes any sense. And yeah, I noticed a lot of people online, they don't feel human and they don't feel like and that's probably a good thing, but I think that's also important to, you know, feel one with your body and feel within your body, and that's the importance of grounding that you were talking about earlier.
Yes, of course.
So I was going to talk to you about a few things about astral traveling and things like that, but I was also going to talk to you about negative ETs. Do you come across them anymore, or do you still every once in a while or something?
So the last time I had an encounter was in February of 2022. And I encountered some reptilians in the astral space. I was in an underground base with the tunnels, and I was just checking and making sure that there weren't any children or any souls left in like these cages. And I had these two men with me, and then I was like, something was weird, and I said to them, no, like, you not being honest, you need to show yourselves. And they showed themselves, and they, you know, kind of like transmuted into these two really big reptilians, and the one grabbed me by the neck and pushed me up against the wall. And I remember it like these huge sharp teeth and these red eyes. And then what I did is I just sprayed white light from my third eye. I'll generally do that, or spray from my hands or from my heart. And then I woke up, and when I woke up, I connected to my team and I said, guys, how is this happening? Why are these beings? They shouldn't even be allowed in my field. And they, no. They said, it's fine. This was a pre-contracted experience that you were supposed to have, so that then you can speak about it on a collective level and say to people, guys, you are more powerful. If this happens in the astral, then you need to do this and that. Sometimes what they can do is they co-create your astral space in order to make you think you're somewhere, but you're actually somewhere else. But they're not really allowed in my field anymore, even when it comes down to like minor psychic attacks and things like that. Yeah, it's not really something that's in my field. I'm just trying to think. I mean, I'll do here and there entity removal on clients. So I'll have clients that come to me, and then I will do here and there entity removals and things like that. But in my personal life and field, not really, no.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And I notice a lot of people say like, oh, be careful about channeling, be careful about this. And that really pisses me off, because I think it scares a lot of people away from connecting to the other side. It's kind of like, you know, when Christians would say, oh, be careful, everything else is demons or this or that. I think it kind of scares people into connecting with their team, because they're like, oh, I don't know, how do you know what you're connecting with? And I think it's important to just come at it with a positive outlook and within your heart center, and use your team to your advantage, especially like your angels, like Archangel Michael. Is that someone that you work with on a day-to-day basis?
I work very closely with the Archangelic Collective. So I grid from the Archangelics. I work with Metatron, Sandalphon, Muriel, Raphael, Gabriel, Michael. I work with all the Archangelics. I actually teach channeling as well, so that people can learn how to do it in a safe and supported way, because it can be a little bit, it can be like strange territory. You can navigate and enter it and not know. Like, let's say you all of a sudden decide you want to start channeling, but you've got an open portal in your room. You don't know what's going to come and go. So we get taught this in school or growing up or anything like that. So for me, part of what I teach on a collective level is learning how to channel in a way that is safe, supported, grounded, anchored, protected.
Love that. Safe, guided, and protected. For sure. I think it's very good that you come at it with that, like that. And I noticed a lot of people, I've noticed some people that I've interviewed or been interviewed by, they think of protection and shielding as something that they constantly need to do. and they're constantly need to putting up their sacred space or constantly doing things like that. Do you feel like you constantly have to do that? Because that seems kind of exhausting.
Yeah, not anymore. I think it comes down to balance everything. So for me, I'll still wake up in the morning and call on my team. Every morning I will call on my team. If one morning I don't, the world's not going to collapse. I've got a very big team that I walk with and goes with wherever I go, but because I've been consistently calling them in for years. So with consistency, you get spiritual strength. If you are consistently healing, doing work on yourself, working with your guides and things like that, but you never calling shielding out of fear. You are always calling it out of love.
Yes.
If you're calling it out of fear because you're scared, then it's counterproductive and it's not going to work. So for me, what I'll do is if I go into a new place, I'll just clear the space, make sure there's no portals, make sure there's gridding around, and then I can sleep there or stay there for a few days and whatnot. I do tend to call my team on a daily basis, but again, I don't have attachment to it. If one morning I wake up, I'm in a hurry and I'm not able to, like, maybe I'll like mentally call them quick or whatnot, or I just go about my day. It's not a train smash. So everything with balance, nothing with attachment. And again, it's about you and your own connection with your spirituality, with your guides, with your beings. Every individual is different. Maybe for some people it works to wake up and dance for 10 minutes so they move energy around their body. And that can be their sacred grounding and anchoring in space. But what I have noticed is, yeah, with things like shielding and calling in their guides, it doesn't have to be consistently done. With consistency, you build spiritual strength. And the reason I say that is because when you wake up in the morning and one morning you say, oh, I don't want to call my guides, but you still do, you're breaking through that barrier, which is a blockage, and you're building. So it's like everything, the more you play tennis, the better you get at it. The more you cut people's hair, the better you get at it. So same with spirituality, but it's about the individual and their connection to the guides or the ascended masters or whoever it is they want to work with.
For sure. And I was thinking about, people say that they're a bright light, so it attracts a lot of negative energies around them or something like that. In my experience, when people raise in frequency or their light gets brighter, it's almost like these negative frequencies, they're not attracted to that, or they can't even see it. They can't even see you. And when you raise in frequency, they're not even on the same kind of dimensional level. Have you?
Yeah, it's almost like they're not allowed in the field. I do find that sometimes per karmic contract, it can happen, but on a general basis. So what I've learned is that they can't interact, but they still observe. So when you're operating at certain levels, like me, you channeling, doing light language and things like that, you're anchored in that frequency. They can't interact, but they can still observe. So let's say, for example, it's almost like the higher you rise, the more you fall. So let's say, for example, you released your attachment to weed, you're not smoking weed anymore, and you haven't smoked in many years. And one day you have like a traumatic event and you decide to relapse and smoke 20 joints in a day or something like that.
Yeah.
That happened. Did you do it?
Yeah. I think a year after my first awakening. And then I went through a whole nother.
Exactly. So that, and then you fall so low that then these beings can come, and now because you've been so high, they want to suck your energy and things like that. So I'm not talking about a small thing. So for example, I don't know, you get triggered and you raise your voice, you know what I mean, or something like that. I'm talking about a big kind of I don't want to say step out of alignment, because everything is always in divine alignment and there's no wrongs in life. I think everything is a lesson. So if you do something and then it doesn't go the way you kind of expect it to go, even though you shouldn't have expectations, but let you have them, then you don't do it again. So it isn't really a mistake. I like to see life as there's no wrongs, but that's kind of what I've learned. They're not allowed in your field, but they are still there and aware of what is it you're doing, and there is still the polarity, but they're not allowed in your field. They can't really interact with you in any way. For sure. And I think like you were saying, everything happens for a reason, and I do agree with that. And I also think that some things may not have necessarily been on your path. Maybe that's that psychiatric experience that I had in the ward, and doing that, it might not have been what was supposed to happen, but it doesn't mean that you can't learn from that. Some of these traumatic experiences that happen anyways,
you can learn from a lot of them. And I noticed that so you were saying that I noticed with a lot of the avian lifetimes that I've had that I feel like that's one of the reasons why I have like ADHD and I can't like stop moving a lot of the time. And I feel like I'm taking in extra light frequency. I've always felt like that than the normal person. And so, and with that being said, you with astral traveling, in my experience, I've noticed that I don't do a whole lot of things. I don't attempt to astral travel, if that makes any sense, very often. And is that something that you do on a regular basis, or is that something that just happens when you go to sleep?
Oh, I do a lot of work in the astral space. Sometimes I'm just like, guys, can you give me a break? Yeah, and I'll have cycles. So I'll have weeks where I'll get like 35 people contact me and be like, oh, you were healing me in my sleep. Oh, you were sending me codes. Oh, and I'm like, yeah, I was active. I'm not aware of all of it, but I do operate on a multidimensional level a lot of the time in the astral space. I don't necessarily wake up tired. I've got phases where I clear a lot of apocalyptic timelines. So timelines that could happen, but then they're not happening because I'm there clearing them. And generally that's work that I do with other energy workers. So sometimes I'll be in the astral and there'll be like maybe 7 or 8 other energy workers that I don't necessarily know, but their souls are there and we're all working together. So I do quite a lot of astral work. Yeah, I would say that I don't always necessarily remember it. I'm very conscious. I started lucid dreaming when I was very young. So I've always been very aware of what's going on in my astral space, of how to like leave if I want to leave. So I can't really get tricked when they tried. Like, it doesn't really work with me for some reason. I tend to operate quite well in that space. But yeah, then what I find, especially for a lot of people as well, is when you're clearing a lot in the physical and in the 3D, your astral quietens down. And then when this is kind of like aligned and well grounded and balanced, then you'll start clearing more in the astral. It's very seldom that you're operating at full capacity on both levels.
And do you find that when you are doing a lot of sessions and you need extra rest, does your soul, when you go to sleep, does it kind of hang out somewhere else a lot of the time and take like rest?
So with me, it's very interesting because I don't operate like your normal person would operate. So I'll have like, maybe let's say I've got 10 clients in a day. After 5 clients, I'll have a half an hour free in between. I'll literally lie down and then I'll say, okay, I'm going to go in, close my eyes. I go in for like sometimes 1 minute, sometimes 10, sometimes 6. I get a full system reset and reboot from whoever, and then I come back and I'm fully fresh and ready to go for another 5 clients. So that's kind of like generally what I'll do if I need a reset throughout the day, if I'm operating on a level that there's a lot of clients. I don't really get physically tired, if it makes sense. Sometimes, I mean, I'm a woman, so based on my moon cycle, I'll kind of like work a little bit less the days that I'm on my moon cycle and the days just before, but it's not something that I calculate. It's quite interesting. When I'm getting my moon cycle, half of my day will clear up because the clients will be like, oh, like I can't do this. Oh, I'm traveling. Let's reschedule and whatnot. So I find that I'm very divinely taken care of regardless.
For sure. I think that's like really cool. And that your team really takes care of you like that and supports you like that. That's very cool that you don't get drained as much as a lot of people I notice on this path. And I was going to ask you the last question I'm going to ask you before we kind of go into the light language thing and touch on that, because I don't want to keep you on forever.
That's okay.
Because it can be draining to, especially when you get over an hour and stuff. But I wasn't going to ask you about, like violet life colors and blue, and then there's like indigo, and then like you said, crystal and rainbow. And I was so I was asked, I don't know, I'm gonna try to formulate my question, but I think with me, for example, I think I get along better with people that are indigos or that have some crystal or rainbow or things like that. Also, especially within like relationships, when I'm going to be in a relationship with someone, it makes more sense for me to be with like an indigo or something that's like a crystal or something like that, because it's just more suited to my energy. Have you noticed that within your own life? No?
Not really. With me, I just get sent a lot of karmic stuff to clear. And sometimes it's not even mine to clear. And I'm just like, no, guys, can you just get out of my peripheral? But definitely, I mean, I'm not currently in a union because of this, because it's really very difficult for me to resonate with someone who is operating at the level that I'm operating. But for sure,
Yeah.
if I'd have to set the intention, it would be someone who would be of a similar rainbow race spectrum and imprinting. But also at the same time, I don't really check up on the people that I connect with, because I'm doing this all day, every day, that I kind of want to live my experience. You know what I mean? So when someone comes in my field, I kind of get to know them and whatnot. And I'll pretty much know still straight away, but I don't tend to tune in. Like the first thing that people ask me when I'm out is like, oh, what do you see in my aura? And I'm like, guys, I'm not working. Can you just, like, I'm just here to be human, please?
Yeah, like I could see that being a little bit frustrating, as people kind of see you as like, and see you in this way, the way that you are online, or they put you on a pedestal or from some sort. So it might be difficult for you to make new friends and things like that. I'm not.
Well, everyone all my close friends are colleagues.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And yeah, I think it's really cool to communicate with other people that are doing this type of work and bounce ideas off of each other and things like. It's really fun. And the last question I was going to ask you is about traveling. I know you do a lot of traveling and you go to a lot of different places. And so, are you in South Africa at the moment?
I am currently in South Africa, yes, but I'm going to be in the States next month. So I'll be doing in-person work in Los Angeles I'll be there from the 6th to the 19th of February. I'm going to be speaking at the Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton. And then I'm going to also be holding a workshop at the Mystic Manor, which is this beautiful, beautiful mansion on Venice Beach, on the 17th, which is the Saturday after so I'm doing the first Saturday, which is the 11th, I think, or the 10, the Conscious Life Expo, and then the Saturday after that. And in between, I'm taking in person. I'll be doing some grid work in LA. I don't know where that's going to be yet, but I'm going to be working on a planetary level as well. And then I'm flying to New York, and I'm holding a workshop on the 24/02/2024. So it'll be quite a powerful gate portal opening. I'll be working with dragon energy this whole kind of like trip in the States. They've said that there's going to be a lot of dragon energy that I'll be working with. And then I'm running my first ever retreat in person in Costa Rica. Yeah, in November of this year. I was going to say 2024, but now we are in 2024. So yeah, in November of this year. Yeah.
For sure. And so with you, I noticed that with myself, I'm very sensitive and very empathic. And I noticed that people like with my starseed origin, like Blue Avian starseed origins, taking in the energy around them, and they transmute the energy. And that's just like, I think it's just a part of how their energy works. But I've noticed that when I'm in lower vibrational locations, I don't do as well as other people. So like, for example, when I grew up in Alabama, when I moved to the West Coast, I felt a lot better. So is that something that you notice within yourself, that when you go to certain locations that you feel better or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's just a resonance with the grid. I think it was just probably a grid that you resonated more in one place compared to the other. Yes, I do notice the difference when I anchor, like I'm in a grid here, and then as soon as you drive, like I think it's about an hour outside of the city, you access and enter another grid with a completely different vibrational frequency.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say per se that one is better than the other, but I mean, I can say that maybe for some you can resonate better than others. Yes. So like when I enter Europe, it tends to be a little bit more of a denser grid, but it doesn't really affect my grid per se, my frequency that much. I think because yeah, I'm used to traveling, and I think the more you travel, the more you adapt, easier it is. But yeah, I guess I'll see when I access the States, and I'll see when I land what kind of grid it is that side.
Cool. You've been to the States before, though. Is that correct?
Yes, but when I was 21, I lived in New York for a bit, and then when I was like 10 or something with my family. So it's been over 10 years since I've been in the States.
Cool. And yeah, that's where I'm being guided to on the West Coast, that San Francisco area and some places in Oregon. And I've been to LA before, but I've never been to those places where they're guiding me to. And yeah, it's very cool that you say about, in certain places, like you even go from neighborhood to neighborhood, you can see the frequency from like, and even in your city, like you'll sense like, oh, just a few blocks that way, the energy feels better because there's more like fairy energy, or like there's a fairy den or something like that. And then you go like a couple blocks that way, it doesn't feel as good. That's one thing that I've noticed.
Definitely, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I think this would be a good time to segue into some channeling or some light language, and we'll see what and first. It might be a collection of.
Yeah, for sure. We can see. So I think, yeah, for everyone who's watching, you can start by closing your eyes and anchoring into the body as you find your comfortable breathing rhythm. With every inhale, you breathe in light. And with every exhale, you release all that doesn't serve you anymore. And as we call on the Archangelic Collective, Michael to the south, Uriel to the north, Raphael to the east, Gabriel to the west, we call on Archangel Metatron with his blue cloak of protection from above, and Sandalphon to seal the grid from below. As we call on our higher selves, our spirit guides, anyone else who wishes to be present, for the greatest and highest good, you're welcome in the space. Opening, opening, opening. Opening systems. Activating blueprint structures. Tuning. Tuning, expanding, more light, divine rays, anchoring into system structures. Activating, expanding heart center. Releasing, letting go, decoding, detangling, removing blockages. Trakiera kukuro ishiraya satakaria tikara yeshiraya takra tranere akiero kuk anasia sietka taraishet kara triakiet kuk anaisiet kara triatra nre naraya siatok una ishira isera iataka reatre koro itia yashitakra accessing heart-centered, opening to more light, more trust, more love, more patience, more compassion of the self. I have the Dragon Collective here. It is time to open gateways of unconditional love into personal power. Codes of knowledge coming in, anchoring, activating memory template structures, expanding codes of remembrance. Rainbow rays, attuning systems, upgrading blueprint structures. Rakie kuk ara isera takra triatic oro ishera ya siesa sa leaving behind any doubt yetuk oro ishishishishia se letting go of self-doubt kierukuk uno isera tikam ruk era ishera sira tukor anchoring into the power of the ancestral lineage coming in, anchoring more light, divine rays. Yoyok na re atukum rasi atekaraishi shuk rasi rataka de nara yasi karaishi roko na naraishi rayataka shuk oro ishira yataka rakiek oro ishira tuk oro ishira takra Okay. Then ground back into the body. How are you feeling?
That's a lot of energy. That was a lot. Is it usually that long?
Sometimes it's even longer. This wasn't even that long. This was like a few minutes.
That's so cool. I've never done light language before, that's very, very, very cool.
How does it work for you when you channel?
Well, I don't do trans channeling, but I just like tap off to the side, and I just see. So I'm only channeling a portion of that energy through my vessel. I'm not just. So it's kind of cool. But I understand that, like, I feel like light language, you're probably taking in more energy, or trans channeling a larger portion of it.
No, I don't trance channel. I'm very present and integrated in my body. I know it, like, I don't tap out. I'm here when I'm channeling. So
cool.
it's not for me, the way I channel light language, I don't trance channel. It's not the way I operate, because for my channel to be integrated, I need to be present. This is my body. I'm sovereign within it. So I don't really give it way or allow for things to come in and out and whatnot. I've got my multidimensional aspects of self that are integrated, and I channel through that, but it's me.
I'm not as comfortable with doing something like trans channeling. But yeah, I think my team said that I would do light language in the future, but it would be mostly for myself instead of for other people. But that's really cool. And I'm going to go and tune in and see what energy's here, and then I can see what they have to say. The energy's like very giddy and excited. That's what I sense about the energy. I do sense some avians here. I feel like these ones have worked on you before as well, probably during that time. These ones are very high dimensional, I feel, and like, the higher realms, like 12th dimension, give or take, around that area. That's what it feels like to me. They're very happy that you are here to share your gifts with everyone. They're very excited to watch this and see this happening. So they're very saying it's very important for us to come on live doing things like this, because they're saying other people see this, and this makes other people want to step forward and express themselves in however way they want to. They're saying they wish more would step forward. They say a lot of people hang back and they second guess themselves, or they think that other people will think certain things of them. But they are saying that us stepping forward, helping the masses, helping others, and they're really pointing at you. Just like you helping the masses. They're saying within my contract, it's not necessary for me to do this, or really may not even be what's best for me to help a large portion of people. But with you, they say that this is more aligned. This is what is best. They're going on to say everything happens in divine timing. So if you're wanting your channels to open, if you're wanting to know your starseed origins, that time will come. But only in divine timing and what is best. They're saying if you wish to pursue like something like light language or channeling, we can help you do so. They're saying also it may be best to call on your starseed family or on your team as well, as our energy is not suited for everyone. They're saying our energy can be quite intense. Like you said, they can keep you awake at times, and their energy is very different than the human vessel, and it may be too intense. It's kind of hard to channel them right now. It feels like they're twitching and like stinging my eyes, and like that's what I noticed when the Blue Avians come in. It's like a shock, like their energy is like shocks you sometimes. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow, thank you for sharing that. Beautiful message.
I thought this was really cool live. I really enjoyed this. So everyone, do you have any other message that may come through, or do you think it's time to wrap it up?
I think, yeah, if you're going to leave my links, then people can just connect and check my workout. And if they are in the States, I would love to connect and meet in person, if that's what some people prefer. If not, yeah, I do have all my online sessions and everything is up available on my website. My Instagram is Light Codes by ALA. And then, yeah, I've got my YouTube channel, which is Althea Lucrezia, which is my name, where I'll put this on there as well. And yeah, my website is althealucrezia.com. So I think that's about everything. And thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, this is super cool. And yes, we will leave all the links in the description, and make sure to go see her at the Conscious Life Expo. That's going to be super cool. And I won't be able to make it, but I've been to, I think, Alien Con before. I don't know if you've heard of that. I don't know if they even have it anymore, but
I'm not sure. I know the Conscious Life is the biggest in the world. So it's quite
might have,
huge. It's like 15 to 20,000 people. Yeah.
oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, I saw the
Yeah.
list of the people that were there, and it was it was like so many people, and you could definitely see you on there. You definitely stood out. I was like, oh, the red hair. But so this would be really cool. And yeah, you can check out my Instagram. It's just Paul Milgist. My YouTube's Paul Milgist. Everything's Paul Milgist, and I'm gonna be posting some different content on there on Instagram of this interview. That'll be cool. So make sure to go follow us on there. And that's everything. So thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, bye, everyone. You have a great day. I'm just going to go ahead and stop the recording.